You know, it's always made it harder for blacks to vote, but this is trying to be able to figure out how to keep the black vote when it occurs from even counting.
We've got the Sotu tonight. We're going to get some updates on Ukraine and Russia. That situation is evolving quickly. And also, big blue states dropped the mask mandates for their schools freaking finally. We'll give you some updates there, too. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from a dingy bunker completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in today. It is March 1st, the year of our Lord 2022. We're here a little bit early this morning. Appreciate you for joining us while we get into the news of the day. Got some updates on Ukraine. There's a big convoy that is now spotted from a bunch of the drones in the sky, headed towards the capital of Ukraine, 40 miles long. They've only moved 3 miles in a day, but got to catch you up on some of the stuff going on in that whole situation. Joe Biden is giving his State of the Union address tonight, his first State of the Union address. The last one it's not called the State of the Union when you're first inaugurated. I forget what it's called, but this is the first State of the Union address that he's giving tonight. We got some things that he's going to supposedly talk about there. And also mask mandates go down in a bunch of your big states. I want to get to this first. There's a big convoy in Ukraine right now that is going towards the capital of Kyiv and also a bunch of the other places around Ukraine. Last night, last night, our time in the United States, during the day there was some big explosions in a bunch of different places. There were reports of a maternity hospital that was bombed. Also reports in a video that we have right here of a municipal building in Kharkiv, the second biggest city in Ukraine that was hit. Actually, I'm not entirely sure how to take these sorts of things. This is graphic a little bit, so if you don't want that, feel free to look away for the next 30 seconds. But this is a municipal building in the second biggest city in Ukraine, Kharkiv. Check this out. You can see up in that left-hand corner, a missile comes in. Missile bomb. I don't know what they're called specifically, but yeah, you can see that again. Some pretty big explosions there in the second biggest city in Ukraine. This is also stuff going on. There is a 40-mile long. These are some aerial photos. There's a 40-mile long. Let me make this bigger so you can see what it is. 40-mile long convoy of Russian military working its way through the countryside of Ukraine. They're about 17 miles away from the capital city of Kyiv and moving slowly but surely. I think one of the biggest problems, Mike Lyons, military analyst we had on last Thursday, was talking on another station that I was listening to, said their biggest problem currently the Russians have is logistics. That's the biggest logistical problem they have. To keep you updated on what happened throughout the night, Ukraine is saying that they still hold all of their major cities, but Russian soldiers are encircling a bunch of those cities and looking to move in as quickly as possible. Again, some of the aerial views of these big, long convoys, supposedly about 40 miles long, going to the major cities in Ukraine. Let me see. There's a couple. Yeah, this is probably one of the better shots. Massive, massive convoy of anti-freedom truckers, if you want to use that terminology, because we've been using the term convoy for the last couple of weeks. But there's encircling a bunch of the big cities in Ukraine. Zelensky made a speech to the UN last night, in which he got a standing ovation. I pulled a couple of those clips down. I'm not going to play them because they're in Ukrainian. The translation is weird. The translators have been crying in certain speeches that Zelensky has given, which is moving in and of itself. We don't have those clips. What we do have is a clip of the Human Rights Council. I know yesterday I spent a bunch of time bashing the UN because they deserve to be bashed. If you weren't with us yesterday, Russia sits on the Security Council as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, and up until today was the head of the UN Security Council. They rotate positions. And so Russia vetoed a condemnation from the UN to the Security Council, to Russia for invading Ukraine. So there was that. This is the Human Rights Council, which up until this year, Russia sat on the Human Rights Council and China sat on the Human Rights Council. They are not as of right now, but it does include countries like Cameroon and a couple of your other dictatorship states. This is the UN Human Rights Council when Sergei Lavrov was speaking. Sergei Lavrov is a Russian dude. I'm not sure. I think he's the equivalent of Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State for Russia. He gave a video conference speech to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Switzerland. And this is what happened when Lavrov spoke. If you're just listening to this, all of these people are getting up and walking out. About 140 UN Human Rights Council's ambassadors and staffers got up and walked the heck out when Lavrov of Russia was speaking. Because apparently Russia can address the Human Rights Council, and some people are just sitting there. But the majority of people are walking out. There's some interesting video of them at the turnstiles of people walking out. Let me read what's going on here, just kind of a recap. Because again, I don't want to talk about, we've got other stuff outside of Ukraine, masks in your big blue cities and states. That's really interesting, so stick around for that. Let me see. Russia's moves compelled Western officials last week to activate NATO Response forces and its very high readiness joint defense forces for the first time in the alliance's history. The mobilization of NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said it's meant to deter Russian attacks and prevent the war in Ukraine from spilling over into any NATO allied countries. So NATO is responding by saying, no, you can't do X, Y, Z. No troops on the ground from the United States as of yet. President Biden has ruled out putting troops in Ukraine, but he has authorized the deployment of an additional 14,000 military personnel, along with elite F-35 fighters and Apache attack helicopters, to allied countries in the Baltics and Eastern Europe, a sign of how serious the United States hopes to ward off a Russian threat. Putin needs to be calculated here because the UN Article 5 says, obviously, if anybody is attacked NATO Article 5 says if anybody's attacked, then all of us are going to attack. Yesterday / over the weekend, Germany finally ponied up and started putting some funds into their own military defense system. They started giving weapons to Ukraine, if you hadn't followed that story. But there's a lot of NATO countries that kind of border along where this is all taking place. Poland in particular. NATO said that if Putin releases a cybersecurity attack, all of that needs to be targeted within Ukraine, because if any of that leaks over, say, for example, Russia knocks out a power grid in Poland that knocks out power to a hospital and some people die who are on respirators or whatever the case may be, if any of those even cybersecurity attacks leak out to NATO nations, the leaders of NATO, the generals in NATO, have said that would activate Article 5, which would then activate a response from NATO. This is going to be really interesting to play out. That's pretty much what we got now, just kind of recapping things going on. The bottom line is Ukrainians have held all of their major cities thus far, but there is a long convoy of Russian military tanks, artillery, and troops headed to the major capitals, major cities in Ukraine. We'll see how that goes. We're all hoping that Zelensky withstands and the Ukrainian military withstands. And aside from putting troops on the ground, I think the world is okay with helping him out in any way they can. I want to get to this. Blue states end school masks. Freaking finally. So I tweeted out yesterday when this came out. So New York, Kathy Hochul on Monday, yesterday was Monday, so Monday morning, said that they're going to end mask mandates statewide in the school. Eric Adams, mayor of New York, said, yeah, mask mandates are going away. We're going to pretty much lift all of the COVID restrictions. Because remember, the polling is so bad that Democrats are going to get smacked in the midterm. So they're trying to retain whatever votes they have left. And pretty much also everybody agrees they're going to get smacked in the midterms. So that's really an inarguable point. But politics has shown that masks are now ineffective in these states. Soon after, California, Oregon, and Washington said that they were going to end their statewide mask mandates for schools and other indoor settings by March 12th in a coordinated move announced Monday. California, which lifted its indoor mask mandate requirement for vaccinated people. Oh, it's for vaccinated people? Interesting. California had a mask mandate all the way up until February 15th that nobody followed and nobody enforced. I didn't know that it was only lifted for vaccinated people. That doesn't make any sense. It's ending for unvaccinated people on Tuesday. Oregon and Washington will take the same steps March 12th. The same day, the three West Coasts will no longer require masks in school. They are joining other Democrat-led states, counties, and cities that have relaxed or ended mask mandates in recent weeks as the Omicron surge has faded. New York State said Sunday that it would lift statewide public masking in schools starting on Wednesday. I don't understand why states do this and counties do this. This is important. We are going to end the mask mandate in 2 weeks. Next week. I don't understand why can't it be today? There's a bunch of kids out there saying today. You know what? If you have the ability to do it, pull your kids out until March 12th. Just have them not go to school until March 12th, and maybe in the future, unlikely, whenever these things get repealed, they'll say, hey, day of. There are a bunch of teachers out protesting, doing sick-outs. We don't really know what they want because they haven't made it clear what it is that they want, but there's that. Here's the bottom line with these states all of a sudden going super, super anti-mask. First things first, well, one thing to consider is it is coming up on midterm elections. And because Democrats currently are slated to get their butts handed to them, and this is not just conservative outlets, this is everybody agrees that Democrats are going to get smacked in the midterms. But in an attempt to try and salvage the little amount of support that they will have going into the midterms, all of a sudden the mask mandates are falling. Remember, in California, there were more COVID deaths and hospitalizations when the mask mandate expired than when it was put into place. So that should tell you something, that it was never about the COVID. It was all about appeasing the teachers' unions and making a political choice to try and garner votes. But the second those votes swung the other way, all of these are now falling down. If you haven't already, would really appreciate you clicking the little like button, clicking the little share button. It really helps us out, get to more people, because, I don't know, it just does. And it doesn't cost you anything, so we really appreciate you doing that. Doesn't take much. I know there's a couple thousand of you watching across all the different platforms and pages, so click the little like button and the little share button. Also, too, bottom line on the masks, it wasn't the depression that caused these mask mandates to get lifted. It wasn't the learning loss. It wasn't any of the horrible things that the masks did to kids and the effects that we're going to see for years. No, it was politics. It was, wow, got something in my eye. It was politics. It didn't have anything to do with the disease, with the depression amongst kids, with the learning loss amongst kids. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that kids, thank God, don't contract this thing and don't get sick from it. The only thing this had to do was with poll numbers. That's the only thing that this was contingent on. The only thing that masks were contingent on were poll numbers. And the second your big blue governors, mayors, county supervisors, county health advisors saw the polling was going the other way and thought, oh crap, we better fix this fast, they immediately jumped to the other side. So just keep that in mind, because there's a lot of people that say, well, shouldn't you be accepting of people that come to your side of the argument? Not in this case. I wouldn't say in this case, because the negative effects of this political maneuver by your big blue city-state governments are going to be felt for a long time. And so, and they knew what they were doing. It's not like they all of a sudden got new reporting. No, this reporting has been out there for a long time. All of this stuff should have been gone a year ago, but they held on to it because they wanted to. Also, side note, California has ended all of their mask mandates, but the state of emergency will stay in place throughout the endemic, says Governor King Gavin Newsom. Everybody's still in emergency. Cancel your weddings, cancel your bat mitzvahs, cancel all of your big events, because California will stay in a state of emergency through the endemic. The state of emergency in California was supposed to expire March 31st. Gavin Newsom came out 2 days ago, last week. I think it was last week. Gavin Newsom came out last week and said that, no, we're going to end a lot of the provisions of the emergency, but we're going to keep the emergency intact. Cancel everything. We are still in a state of emergency in the state of California. I want to finish up here with this. This is Biden's first State of the Union address tonight. A couple things going on with the State of the Union address. This is his first State of the Union address. He gave an address last year to nobody in the congressional auditorium. I forget what it's called. It's if you know what it's called, let me know in the comment section, because the first State of the Union address, or the first time the president addresses joint Congress, is not called the State of the Union, because they have no idea what the State of the Union is. It's like the plan of attack, the partisan hack plan of attack. That's what it's called. We'll call it that, the partisan hack plan of attack. But Joe Biden will give his first State of the Union address tonight, and we can expect to hear, I think, things like this.
We're going to keep pushing on this. And we're protecting our country's threshold liberty, the sacred right to vote, which I've never seen is under such attack. You know, it's always made it harder for blacks to vote, but this is trying to be able to figure out how to keep the black vote when it occurs from even counting. Over the past year, we've directed federal agencies to promote access to
So again, for some reason, the old man sitting in the White House is still pushing the whole voter suppression nonsense, which I feel like has been debunked by pretty much dang near everybody. Hey, guess what? Black people are smart enough to get voter IDs. Whoa, controversial statement there. But the State of the Union address is tonight. Joe Biden is expected to talk about a bunch of his failed agenda, and by failed agenda, I'm not talking about this is not a policy decision. This didn't pass throughout Congress or the Senate, and weren't able to get it through. The voting rights takeover of the federal government takeover of voting and elections did not pass. The Build Back Venezuela bill did not pass to a large extent. They did get that infrastructure thing through, which is not infrastructure. Let me see. Gustavo says it's the presidential inaugural address. You know what? I appreciate that, but I also like sticking with the partisan hack plan of attack. Heading into his first State of the Union speech, President Biden is struggling to overcome obstacles of his legislative agenda, cutbacks in crimes, rein in rising pricing for Americans, and to get control over the cascading international crises. Holy cow, a lot of there. So his legislative agendas have failed miserably. Crime is through the freaking roof, so there's that. Prices, inflation is at a 40-year high. There's that. And also, the world is coming apart at the seams. See Russia, Ukraine. So in terms of when Joe Biden gets up there and says the State of the Union is strong, because that's the That's the normal thing, or the obligatory statement that presidents make. The state of our union is strong. I think a lot of us are going to be going, it is? I would like it to be. But holy cow, man, that's a stretch, maybe, probably. He'll also come to Congress with some significant accomplishments under his belt. This is from the Washington Post, so feel free to disagree with how they word things. Those include passage of the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the nomination of the potentially first black woman to the Supreme Court. Geez. Then they take a turn here. This is again from the Washington Post, completely discounting all of the other mitigating variables going on in here. And he adds millions of jobs before when he came into office. So millions more Americans have jobs than when he came into office. Yeah, no S, dude. That's not really big of an accomplishment. If you lose millions of jobs, getting those jobs back should be the norm, not necessarily a big accomplishment under his belt. Meanwhile, COVID-19 cases are decreasing significantly throughout much of the country. So there's that. In a Fox News poll released last week, Biden had a 43% approval rating. These things fluctuate so much. I think there was a Gallup poll that came out like yesterday that was like 37%. But Biden is sitting in the low 40s, high 30s, which is like Trump's lowest. In a Fox News poll released last week, Biden had a 43% approval rating compared to a 56% disapproval. 51% of Americans disapproved of Biden's handling of COVID-19. 58% disapproved of his handling of foreign policy. 61% disapproved of his handling of the economy. 59% disapproved of his handling of crime. And 62% disapproved of Joe Biden's job on immigration. So he is not walking into the Sotu in great fashion. We'll just say that. But we'll keep you up to date on that tomorrow. You know what? Yeah, a little slice of life here today on this Tuesday morning. We're going to Hawaii, my wife and I, for the next couple of days. I'm hoping to do the show from there. Time change is going to be a little bit interesting, but hoping to do that from there. But because I always want to get the State of the Union stuff on. But last night, I don't know if you've been to the island state of Hawaii. I used to go pretty frequently, haven't been since the Chinese bat fever has plagued the United States of America. But the hurdles you have to jump through in order to get to the state of Hawaii, still, right now, today, are ridiculous. One, you have to get a COVID-19 negative test in order to get on a plane and go to the state. You have to get a test just to travel. And in order to get that test, you have to give a form of ID. And then once you give a form of ID, you have to go to a place, you have to take the test, you have to wait for the results to come in. And then once your results come in, you're supposed to then upload those results to some state website that includes the results, your ID, where you're staying, your current address, your email, your phone number, all of these data points of information you need just to step foot on the island. And the whole reason I say that is because you don't need an ID to vote here in the United States of America in a lot of places. And a lot of people in the federal government believe that you don't need an ID to freaking vote. You need an ID to do everything else. I can only imagine these rules are to get... I can only imagine these racist rules, these racist ID rules to enter the state of Hawaii is to try and get less black people or Hispanics or minorities to go. I don't know. What is the point of this if you're correlating those racist voter ID rules to the state of Hawaii? That was the thought I had yesterday, scrambling through the ridiculous process it was to get on a freaking plane and go on vacation. I can only imagine those racist Hawaii travel rules. Those racist ID travel rules are the same as racist voter ID rules, right? Right? Is that it? Let me see. that's going to do it for us today. I know I got to end this thing a little bit early. I think my wife's waiting outside the office in the car right now for me to wrap this thing up and get going on a vacation. But I will see you from Honolulu, Hawaii tomorrow to talk about Joe Biden's State of the Union. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be I don't know if it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a partisan hack time. Partisan hack plan of attack. That's what I want to call the State of the Union address. We will be back with you tomorrow. Same time, different place. Appreciate you already. If you haven't already, just click the little like button, click the little share button. I know we're getting off right now, but just do that. It really helps us out. Really, really appreciate you doing that. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless America.